Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Marty Waters, who's the Retirement Success Coach. Marty, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me today. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm excited to talk to you because obviously you help people with retirement, and more than that, you help them retire successfully. And more than that, you're not the retirement success guru of all gurus. You're just the coach. You're the guide. You're teaching them what they need to know. And so that's a neat vibe to that title there. I like that a lot. So before we dive into what you do and how you do it, tell us a little bit about your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like in your career.
Sure, Mike. I started my career about 20 years ago now in the financial services realm, working as a registered investment advisor for some of the top firms that everybody has heard of out there, and worked there for about 10 years with two of them, and then moved from there where it was approaching the 2008 financial debacle, if you will.
Yep, and I remember it well.
I was really, kind of struggling with staying with financial services, or doing something completely different. But then I found a mentor of mine turned me on to the whole insurance side of the financial services industry, and been working on and off in there since 2008 because I like the fact that there's a lot of products out there that don't expose clients to market risk.
Yeah.
Only gives them the upside market gains and such like that. So been doing that ever since, 2009, 2010. But recently, in the last 5 years, I really started looking into why people are not succeeding in retirement when they are doing everything correctly financially. They're saving for retirement. They're putting their money away in solid investments. They're not going out and spending a lot of their money. They're just taking care of it, being good stewards of money, but they get into retirement and they still fail. And that is where I've been in most of my studies in the last 5 years and helping clients with how to win the game of retirement, because it's so much more than the financial side of retirement that most advisors are out there helping people with. So I like to take a more holistic approach.
Yeah, I love it. So let's jump right into one thought as you were describing that. It makes me think of this. If you were to say XYZ couple or retiree is not succeeding in retirement, what does that look like?
Well, what it looks like is that they are struggling. What I find common is once they go from the work life, that we are all used to, into retirement, they're struggling with their identity. And what I mean by that is that, for example, I have a couple, one is an accountant or was an accountant, one was an engineer. So in the work life, they were accountants and engineers. That was their identity. That was their work identity. But as they transitioned into retirement, they lost that identity and they are literally lost now and don't know where to go. So what happens is, I see this with a lot of folks who are in retirement, is they can't get out of bed. They don't, because that alarm clock is not waking them up to do anything.
They don't have like that purpose, that drive.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it, Mike. No purpose, no identity. And then that leads into other problems. And those problems can be addiction, suicidal tendencies and thoughts. I see also another issue is just, as we get older, we lose a lot of our friends, right? Because they pass on. So they're really unable to to have friendships and social interactions because they're not really good at making new connections as they move towards retirement. So these are some of the things that are really important to work on prior to getting to retirement. Health deteriorating is another huge one as well. So
one that you've not mentioned?
What's that?
Money. Like you would think that if you were to ask, oh, well, what's a non-successful retirement look like? Well, you don't have enough money to. Well, that's kind of the elephant in the room, the obvious one. But what you're talking about are all of these soft skill things that actually, if they're not handled right, can become just massively cumbersome. It's almost like Marty Waters is a life coach,
I say that every once. I call myself the life coach of baby boomers. That's exactly right.
That's hilarious.
Because what a lot of folks don't realize is once you transition into retirement, retirement is work. It's still work. It's just a different type of work.
Yeah.
And you just touched upon it, those soft skills. A lot of folks have the skills, but they're different skills to be successful. So some people have some of them, some don't have any of them, and just need to work on those. And, one of the biggest one is to simply get back in touch of who they are and find a new identity from their work life to the retirement life. That's one of the big ones I see that I help folks with as well.
Well, most of the time, if someone goes, "Hey, nice to meet you here at this, mixer. What do you do?" Or tell me a little bit about yourself. The typical thing is, oh, well, I'm an engineer and I work over at. That's the knee-jerk reaction to that. So, like what you just said, when that engineer, when that accountant retires, now it's like, so tell me about yourself. Well, I don't know. So now let's use that as an example. What would happen, so many times it's like, it's better to give than to receive. We've heard that. So maybe part of your guiding coaching with clients could be for that couple you mentioned, engineer and accounting industry. Maybe they want to give back to the industry and go align and coach and guide up and coming youngsters that are coming out of college or even in college trying to find their way in the engineering field. And maybe they're going to go in and do some guest teaching at a school, or maybe they're going to mentor some young kids to go, here's some of the lessons I learned in the engineering field. Well, now they can feel like they're an engineering mentor coach. They're not getting paid for it. They don't need the money. They just want to feel like they're giving substantial advice and giving back. I think that's such a neat way to think about things. And I think that, unfortunately, retirees don't think about what we're talking about here until after it's hit them between the eyes. And it's like, now what? Well, let's come talk to Marty before this happens.
Exactly. You really hit it on the nail. That's some of the things we're exploring with that couple is possibly do some mentorship with younger students and things like that. And you're exactly right. They just need some purpose. They just want to put some value into the world that, and now they're at that mixer cocktail party. And when someone says, what do you do? Or, tell me a little bit about myself. Now they have a whole thing that they're passionate and excited to talk about. It's a wonderful thing to watch.
Yeah. I spent 30 years in the engineering field and I took my bumps and bruises and learned some lessons. And now that I'm retired, boy, I'm taking all of my best advice. I'm going back and mentoring some up and comer. And now people are like, oh, that sounds awesome. How cool is that? Oh, and of course I like to play golf and go sailing or whatever their fun things are too. So I think that sounds like such a different approach to retirement than what you typically hear financial advisors, because most of the time they're talking about portfolios and stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And yes, that's part of obviously succeeding in retirement, but is this the main difference that separates you from other advisors?
I think so. If I could share a story with you and your audience, it really comes down to watching how I kind of got into this side of the, I call it the non-financial aspects of retirement, is watching my father completely fail at retirement. He did everything right, worked great corporate jobs, actually was a business owner, ended in the government sector, took care of his family, loved his family and friends, just did everything right and what you're supposed to do correctly. But once he went into retirement, I noticed it right away. He started, cracking a beer open, at noon, and didn't go and play his favorite love of life, which was golf. Loved golf. His friends were even noticing that he wasn't showing up anymore at the weekly golf league, and just different things like that was happening. And I set him aside and asked him what was going on. And, of course he didn't think anything was wrong. But I could tell there was something going on, quite wrong. And then all of a sudden, his health started deteriorating. And then within 2.5 years of retirement, we lost him.
Wow.
And it was just such a shame to watch someone who I love dearly, looked up as a hero, who worked all of his life supporting his family, did everything he was supposed to do correctly, but never got to enjoy the fruits of his labor in retirement. And unfortunately, Mike, it is becoming more and more common with folks I talk to as well, which is something that is just such a great shame and tragedy, if you ask me.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that I don't know when this shift has happened, but I'm sure someone has pinpointed a kind of a decade. But it used to be you work your job, you get your gold watch, and you retire, and you go to Florida and play golf, and yay. These days, right. I think that how we're wired in reality, we are wired to be productive and give value. And so when you recognize, hey, you know what? You're thinking about retiring because you're tired of the grind, but in reality, you're not really ready to kick back and do nothing. So why don't you go ahead and work 2 days a week and then spend a day or two volunteering this and that, but you feel like you've now really pulled back. Gracious, going from 5 full days a week to 1 or 2, that's retirement. So that could be one definition of, but unfortunately, sometimes people never think of that on their own because it's like, I'm just doing the grind, and they need someone from the outside right. to go, have you ever thought about, and how would it feel if you just were, and that's kind of where your coaching, your guiding comes in. And I think that you can get a story like what you just mentioned about your dad and combine that with someone that does it differently and go, wow, what a relief that is. What a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the big things that is changing, as you probably are aware of in your audience, is longevity. Yeah. We are living longer, so our retirement can last longer. If you're looking at the typical retirement age of 65, 67, somewhere in there, I mean, you could literally be in retirement for 20, 25 more years. Yep. That's a long time of just sitting around or playing golf or sitting on the beach, like a lot of folks think retirement's all about.
Yeah.
That's another huge aspect into the fact that retirement has changed so much from like when, my father's father, my grandfather retired. Like you say, got the gold watch, the pension, but he was only alive for maybe 5-6 years after he retired. That's just unfortunately how it went back in those days, with longevity lasting so much longer now. So, yeah. Yeah,
we're all healthier. We're all taking care of ourselves, eating better, exercising. So that lifespan, when you think about retirement, whatever age that traditionally is in your mind, that might need to be scooted back a few years because, you're living healthier and more vibrant. So here's a question that makes me think right. of this. A lot of times people are like, oh, retirement, yeah, I'll do it. And then it creeps up on them. And the typical question to a financial professional like yourself, when should people start planning for retirement? Well, as early as possible. But is that time of planning for retirement, does that coincide time-wise with this new kind of approach to thinking about what retirement should look like? So in other words, if you were to say traditionally, hey, we need to make sure your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and all the money things are in place at least 10 years, 15, whatever that time frame before retirement. But at the same time, we need to start thinking right now about some of these other soft skills, or does that come maybe 1 or 2 years before retirement? Is there a staggered effect there, or do they work in conjunction?
I like the 5-year time frame before retirement. That's where I really strive to have clients and folks that are thinking about retirement have a 5-year plan and start that non-financial planning 5 years prior to retirement. Now, 3 years is okay. If you have to do it in 1 year, that's fine. But what I find more and more often is that people are already in retirement struggling, and that's when that's when they reach out, which I'm glad that they are at least becoming aware that something's wrong. This isn't the retirement that I dreamed of or have been dreaming of. It's better to be reaching out for help then than never reaching out. But 5 years before retirement really is a great time. Yeah.
Now, traditionally, if you have retired yesterday and you pull up your investment accounts and go, yikes, I didn't do the right things, and they call you up, well, it's too late. You've retired and you've only got X number of dollars. But in reality, the soft skills, the life planning, that kind of stuff, it should be 5 years before, but even if you're in retirement going, something's just not right, these are things they can work with you on now, and there's not really like it's too late, you haven't saved your X number of, dollars.
Right, exactly. I mean, I've talked to many clients that have started a side gig in retirement and now have basically shortened or if not erased that gap of the money issue they were having when they retired due to, stock market losses, just making some bad decisions, things of that nature. So there is other things you can do with no question about trying to make up that gap in the financial side of it. But you're right. The soft skills and the non-financial aspects of planning for retirement it's really never too late to get started, but the earlier the better. But that 5 years, just seemed to be the sweet spot over my experience in this type of work.
Neat. Well, I tell you, I love your approach. It's fresh, it's different, and it brings a 360-degree, perspective to retirement. It's not just the money. That's a piece of it, but it's like everything. So I love what you're doing. If someone is interested in reaching out and connecting with you, what is the best way they can reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, they could either reach me on my website at martywaters.com, or you could reach directly at me at my email, marty@retirementsuccessformula.com.
Excellent. Well, Marty, thanks so much for coming on the show today. It was a pleasure having you.
Well, thank you, Mike. I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate it. And you take care now, all right?
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.